Frederick Van Johnson. I'm here in beautiful San Francisco, California, on a beautiful kind of overcast, slightly cloudy day, sitting here on the Embarcadero. Doug K just came over on one of those little ferries back there that you can see in the background, and he's going to be talking to us/me about this guy, which is the Panasonic Lumix GX7 mirrorless camera, right?
Very good.
So Doug, you played with this camera before, a couple weeks ago, we talked about it. You were kind of like, meh, iffy, you weren't sold.
Right.
So you had a chance yesterday to play with it.
I did.
With Giulio Sciorrio and Tom Curley from Panasonic. They were in town doing photo walks and that sort of thing. Has your opinion changed, and if so, why?
It has. It has. And I think the issue for me was when I first used the camera, I loved shooting with it. I just wasn't happy with the results.
Right.
And yesterday, shooting with it again, I was able to solve that problem.
Okay.
I now like the images I got.
So what were the results?
Let's just call it user error.
What were the results that you were getting?
They were soft. Everything seemed soft to me.
Okay.
And
even with the Leica Lumix lenses and all that?
Yeah, I can't explain it. I don't know what it was. Now, it might have been when I first shot, I had a pre-production camera. And the camera I shot with yesterday was a finished production model.
Shipping, yeah.
It could be a difference. I don't know. But let's just assume it was user error on my part.
Okay, okay. So you got sharp shots out of it. So what do you like? So you like the camera?
I do like the camera.
Okay, what do you like about it?
What I like about the camera is, most of all, first of all, it's easy and fun to use. It's really configurable. And for me, I love to change all the settings and do this and that.
Yeah.
In terms of the options that the camera has, I love setting it up just the way I wanted to.
Yeah.
And there was almost nothing I couldn't do in terms of how I got it going.
Yeah.
This tilt-up electronic viewfinder is an interesting twist. You don't see that too often. Not a big fan of it, but
Did you use it? Were you using that?
I tried. But the fact is that, if you're going to shoot from waist level, you got to go down like there anyway.
Right.
So what this has, of course, is the tiltable LCD. And although it doesn't fully articulate, it tilts.
Yeah.
And for me, that's good enough. I'm not shooting much video, so I was able to.
I need the fully articulated.
You're the video guy.
Yeah.
But for me, and you love shooting yourself. Let's face it.
I am a selfie king.
That's
Come on,
right.
You know, wouldn't you?
As opposed to shooting yourself in the foot.
Exactly.
Which doesn't require that. Right?
No.
So I like to be able to shoot down low like this, and even shoot over my head like this.
Yeah.
And this works really well for that.
I found that I'm not a fan of holding it up like this either, or holding it down. And the main use I found for this flip-up viewfinder is to get out of the way of having it turn off the back LCD.
Oh, I see what you mean.
Because it's got the sensor in there.
The sensor, right?
Yeah, so I just flip this up, the sensor's out of the way, and I can use the LCD on the back. With it down like this, it's going off. It's driving me insane. And strangle it. So do that, I don't have to kill it. So
yeah, it's a little gimmicky. But they could do it. I mean, we've seen that on the Sony RX1R, that really expensive electronic viewfinder. I think the external viewfinder for the Leica does a similar thing.
Yeah, but these are ones that you clamp on there. They're aftermarket.
And cost a lot of money.
Yeah. So that's on Panasonic side. This one's built in. They give it to you, and it works.
That's right. Okay. So the basics on this are, the GX1 came out about 2 years ago. It was a good camera for those days, and it's been a full 2 years almost since they upgraded it. The GX1 became the GX7, even though there are other GXs in between.
Okay.
That's really the heritage on this.
Got it.
16 megapixels, $1,100 with the kit lens, depending on the time of day. I've seen it anywhere between this is street price.
Yeah.
$1,000 to $1,100 with the kit lens. We'll talk about that kit lens in a bit.
So before you go on with that, 16 megapixels, right? So this guy's 16 megapixels. We're shooting this on the Olympus OMD EM5 right now, right? 16 megapixels. Is that the ceiling for these?
That's the sweet spot for Micro Four Thirds.
Okay. We're not going to see any.
Well, you might, but if you get much more than 16 megapixels, those pixels get really, really teeny.
Which is okay.
Well, the problem is then the noise becomes a problem.
Okay.
So 16 megapixels, at least at this point, is the sweet spot for Micro Four Thirds. The new EM1 is also a 16 megapixel camera.
Yeah.
So no one's really pushing that limit, because they're really getting down to the limit in terms of pixel pitch there.
Okay. Like physics, you got to start bending space and time to get pixel closer. Okay.
So great controls. I have a test that I do, which is the no manual test. Can I go out and use a camera without having to open a manual? This got a 90 plus score.
90?
90 something, right. I make up the numbers.
Right. So it was almost perfect.
The only thing I couldn't find was exposure compensation, which is something I use a lot. And so I had to open the manual. It turns out it's not bad. You just push this little button back here and rotate the knob, and it shows you exposure compensation on the LCD and the EVF. But I did have to look that one up because it wasn't obvious.
Okay.
They have a really nice feature. You know, a lot of cameras nowadays have a quick menu. This has a quick menu. One thing it has is the quick menu has soft buttons along the right side edge. Have you seen that? So there's actually part of the quick menu that you can configure.
Yeah.
And being the configuration guy, I love that.
Yeah.
I love being able to actually change the quick menu. This has an anti-aliasing filter. You know, there's a trend. People are starting to get rid of them. The EM1 doesn't have an anti-aliasing filter. The EM5 does.
This one does not.
This does have it.
It does have one.
Yeah,
Okay.
not a big deal.
Did you notice any
No,
loss of sharpness because of that filter?
hard to tell.
Hard to
Without doing before and after, A
Right.
and B, I wouldn't know, but
Right.
I don't think it's a problem.
Okay.
The shutter is really interesting. First of all, it goes to an 8,000th of a second.
It's crazy.
That's really important
That's
for those.
hummingbird wing freezing speeds right there.
Well, most important for me is I like to shoot wide open in the daylight. And I can do that because I can put this on a low ISO, go to a really fast shutter speed to keep the light down, and then open that lens up all the way. And some of these lenses are, you know, f1.4, f1.8, and that means you have a chance of being able to shoot the daylight without having to put a neutral density filter on, all that garbage. And,
right, which kind of defeats the purpose of having one of these small, nimble cameras.
yeah, exactly. It's the Derek Story nimble photographer thing, which is, you know, why get a camera that's purposefully small and relatively simple and then have a bag full of accessories like you carry around?
Right.
Sherpa.
I don't
Sherpa.
carry that much. Look at this little bag. Look at that.
Yeah.
Look at that right
Yeah,
there.
you showed up with all these cameras and tripods.
Well, that's because we're doing this.
All right.
The normal nimble photographer would only have a bag and one tripod, maybe.
The other thing that's cool about this, and a lot of the mirrorless cameras, is it has a silent shutter mode.
Which is awesome.
Turns off the
Scary awesome.
yeah, scary, spooky.
Yeah.
So the mechanical shutter's off, and you're only an electronic shutter, which makes it sound like
Nothing.
that.
Yeah.
And it takes getting used to because you don't think you're taking a picture.
And it's, you know, the cool thing I found about that, so using that electronic silent shutter mode in conjunction with the low viewfinder, no one knows you're shooting.
You're stealthy.
You're just kind of like looking around. Who knows? I may be on here looking at images.
You're watching a movie.
Could be
You're
anything.
watching a video. That's
Could be anything, which leads to some really interesting shots. You know, of course, it could be used for nefarious reasons, which I don't, condone. But you can get some really interesting, sort of candid shots of people without them like, oh, you're taking a shot. You know, none of that posing. It's just like, boom, normal.
Right. Well, I love the fact that I love the quiet mode. Used it a bit. Love the 8,000th of a second shutter. That was an important thing to me. This camera is, I think, Panasonic's first one that has sensor-based image stabilization.
It is, yeah.
Previously, it's all in the lenses. Here they put it on the sensor. It's not as good as the Olympus. The Olympus is really the king here with their 5-axis stabilization.
Yep.
This isn't as good. And if you put a Lumix lens on, a Panasonic lens on that has stabilization, it'll switch to using the lens stabilization instead of the body.
So it knows that the lens is better.
Use the good one, right?
The other negative about that in-body image stabilization is it only works in still photography.
Correct.
On the Olympus, it will work in video as well as still, which is invaluable.
Yeah.
Here, for now at least, it's just stills.
And we'll get to video too, because that's an important issue for some people. And we'll see how it goes. So another thing I liked about this is more and more I shoot in manual focus. So I want to make sure a camera is going to be a good manual focus camera. And this is the birds.
Trying to get in our video.
This is an excellent camera for manual focus. It has a manual focus area that you can move on the LCD. Oh, we didn't mention the LCD is also touch sensitive.
It's touch, which is
It's bright.
important. Yeah.
It's bright. The touch thing works really well. It's not overly sensitive. In some cases it is for me because what will happen is I'll set the autofocus area when I'm doing autofocus.
Yeah.
I put it up to my eye. The autofocus moves. I think my nose is too big. And so the autofocus area moves
You can
around.
have that surgically corrected if you want to.
I'll work on that.
Yeah, and I'll tell you, slight tangent on that. Having played with the new Sony mirrorless full frame
Yes.
cameras, they don't have a touchscreen.
I know.
On the back, which is like, what?
What's up with that?
What's up with that? This gorgeous screen on the back, and it's not touch.
I think it's a religious thing. There's somebody at Sony says we don't do that.
I don't know, but it drives me up the wall because you like, especially coming from the
well, you start going like this.
The 5R, you're like, oh yeah, boom, 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 and then you go to that. And I'm like a chimp. Like,
that's right. You turn on these other cameras, and you see there, oh, that's what I want, and you go, nothing happens.
Nothing happens.
And you have to, move the thing around.
Yeah.
So people will figure that out. But the manual focus, it has focus peaking, which is highlighting the sharp edges of things so you can see what's in focus. Really bright. You can change the color. Great focus peaking. Has the manual assist so that if you're manually focusing and you turn the focus ring slightly, it zooms in. You can control how much it zooms in. The only problem is it takes 10 seconds for that zoom to go away.
Which is kind of weird.
Other things like that are configurable down to a half a second, but not that one.
Not that.
I hope they'll change that. Please, would you change that for us?
So you can turn it off though, right?
You can turn it off.
You don't have to use it and still use focus peaking with that off.
That's right. But or you can just tap the shutter button halfway and it'll go off. But you shouldn't have to do that.
Right.
Another thing
that's what I do, by the way. I'll just tap it and I'm back to normal.
Yeah, but they should do better.
It's a computer.
Another thing that's a big thing to me is in the LCD and the EVF, is the image you see the proper exposure? If you shoot, underexposed, does it look underexposed? Over, does it look over? So many of the manufacturers adjust the viewfinder image to make it look right. Even though the exposure isn't.
Right.
These guys make the mistake of adjusting, except in a mode called constant preview. I had to look that up. Constant preview, unfortunately, it's only available in manual exposure.
Okay.
But in constant preview mode, if you turn it on, you will see the image as it's properly, as you've set the exposure. So if you're underexposing 2 stops, you'll see a dark image. Overexposing, you'll see a dark image. It doesn't work in aperture priority, shutter priority, or automatic modes. Of course, automatic modes, everything's perfect anyway.
Right, of course, That's interesting. So, that's interesting because that's, I can see how having constant preview would be like valuable, obviously. So it's a WYSIWYG kind of through the lens. What you see is what you get. So you make changes, but if it's altering, so I don't know.
I mean, that's what I want in most cases. Sometimes if it's a matter of autofocus, if it's a matter of focusing in the dark, you want the thing to be lit up as much as possible, even if you're going to shoot underexposed. Even if you want to have a low-key shot or a high-key shot, sometimes you want to see it normal for focusing. But anyway, constant preview is nice. I wish it was available in both the aperture priority and shutter priority as well as manual.
I believe it works in scene modes too on here.
Could be.
Yeah, because Giulio Scurio was telling me that in scene modes, that's one of the benefits of using these kind of cameras, because you can apply these like, crispy black and white or oversaturated or whatever magic you want the camera to do, and actually see it before you take the picture. Just kind of cool.
And that's something I'm playing with all these cameras now, is shooting typically RAW plus JPEG, and in the JPEG trying out the scene modes and the different filters and things like that, because all these camera manufacturers are doing lots of cool stuff. Trying to get that thing right. One thing I'm going to ask you about, because I didn't play with it, talk to me about the Wi-Fi in this camera, because I didn't have a chance to evaluate that.
These cameras, I'll tell you, my Olympus OMD, like we're shooting this on, the EM5, it's great, but it doesn't have Wi-Fi built in. If you want Wi-Fi in it, you have to put an iFi card in there. It's not the easiest experience when it's integrated into the camera. It's integrated into this guy, which means you hit a little button on the back, like back here there's a little button with a Wi-Fi logo on it. You hit it, a little light comes on. We're off right now, but a little light comes on. It broadcasts its own little Wi-Fi network. You run the Panasonic app on your iPhone or Android device, and you're hooked in. You can either control the camera, including zooming and all that sort of stuff. You can control what mode the camera's in. You can do intervalometer or time-lapse photography, all that stuff, and take pictures directly. So you have this on a tripod. Say we want to get some pictures of these nasty pigeons out here. We put the camera on a tripod, throw some food in front of the camera, go back and take pictures of them eating the food, so we can do stuff like that. So you can control it remotely and take photos, but you can also use it as kind of a wireless tether. So I can go set it up, just like I said, connect it to my iPad, for example, go out and shoot, and images will show up on the iPad, like a wireless tether. It's just really awesome. You know?
Now, it's important to recognize that some cameras say they have Wi-Fi, but all they do is transfer images back to a mobile device.
Right, right.
But this one allows you full remote control, is that right?
Correct. Full remote control. Okay. Yeah. So it does both. What you said. So transferring images, and you can, you can pull up a list or a catalog of the images that you've shot and say, yeah, I want that one, that one, that one. Copy them over to my device so that I can do my Instagram or whatever I want with it. You don't have to copy everything, and it's configurable. So you can say, when you copy from this camera to my device, copy at this resolution. Because if it's going online, I don't need the full, JPEG fine. I just need a smaller image that I can then share. So
now on some of my favorite Sony cameras, the Wi-Fi remote is pretty lame. I can sort of see a preview and I can zoom and that's it. On this, can you do more? Can you control aperture?
Yeah.
You can control many more things.
Exposure compensation, aperture, tap to focus, all that.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's pretty good.
It's all in there.
All right. Good. I want to talk about the lenses. This is a big thing for me, and this somewhat comes back to that opening comment about how much I like it or not. And I got the advantage of shooting with this twice was I got to use a lot of lenses. Now, those of us who have big full-frame cameras, when we go out on an assignment and we want to be prepared for anything, we might take the big 3 zooms. In Nikon land, it's the 14 to 24, the 24 to 70, the 70 to 200.
The Holy Trinity.
Holy Trinity, all f2.8, gorgeous, expensive, heavy. Right? Panasonic has come along and done the Micro Four Thirds equivalent. Now it's a 2-to-1 crop. So the lenses are a 7 to 14, a 12 to 35, and a 35 to 100, which is almost exactly that Holy Trinity for Panasonic.
For the Micro Four Thirds sensor.
Right. The wide angle is f4. The other two are f2.8. And of course, they are.
This one's the 12 to 35.
Here's the 12 to 35.
24 to 70.
Right. This is the 24 to 70. It's an f2.8 lens. I love this lens, by the way. I shot with it quite a bit. But this is anybody who's seen the Nikon or the Canon 24 to 70. This is a lot smaller.
It's a little bit.
It's a lot smaller.
A little bit smaller. Yeah. And
of
this
course,
has a lens hood on there too, so it's even smaller than what we're showing.
That's right.
So that's the lens.
Yeah.
Right there. 24 to 70 lens. Here's my little. Look at that. That's crazy.
And this is what
crazy talk.
This is what Micro Four Thirds is all about. Is getting these small lenses. So Panasonic's got this lineup. They're all good. I shot with all 3 of them. I think the 7 to 14 wide angle might be the weakest, although it's pretty fun. This one's nice. The 35 to 100 was really interesting in that I liked it, but I went wide open. I went all the way to 100 millimeters, my 200 equivalent. And I said, where's my bokeh? It's not that soft.
Really?
Because
at wide open, at full.
Because of the crop and all that stuff, you sort of get the bokeh of a f5.6 that you'd get on the big lens.
But then a lot of that's dependent on how close you are to the subject as well.
Well, but
so you can step back a little bit.
No, but I'm saying standing in the same place I would shoot at 200. See, the same spot. So that's back to this again physics thing that. All other things being equal, you're not going to be able to get the shallow depth of field that you can get with the full-frame cameras.
All things being equal. Right. Yeah. Standing in the same spot as your friend with a Canon full-frame DSLR with the same 70 to 200 lens aimed at the same subject. You guys are like this. In order for you to get a similar bokeh, you're going to have to take a couple of steps forward and zoom out a little bit. Or
you can't. You can't. If you're in the same place and you go to 100 millimeter on this, 200 millimeter on the Nikon, you're both shooting at f2.8. The Nikon's going to have a softer background. Okay. If the Nikon goes to f5.6, then they'll look the same.
Got it. And that's like you said, that's an artifact or just a trade-off of going with the smaller sensors, smaller body sizes.
But those of us who have that 70 to 200, we love wide open. It's pretty.
That's what it's for.
So anyway, those are fairly expensive lenses. $1,000 range for each of them.
These guys.
Then there's another set of lenses which are branded Leica. Now, Leica and Panasonic have had this branding relationship for a while, right? There's a 25 millimeter f1.4, gorgeous. There's a 45 millimeter f2.8, also very nice. These are great lenses. They're very reasonably priced.
Yeah.
But I'm going to.
I felt a butt coming.
Yeah, I'm going to introduce a new acronym here.
Uh-oh.
These are Lino lenses.
Lino.
Leica in name only.
Uh-oh.
All right, you heard it here
hate
first.
mail to Doug K.
Now, normally, I mean, these are nice lenses. I like them, you know, in the sub $1,000 range. They're really good. But on an earlier episode of All About the Gear, I had a chance to shoot with real Leica lenses. These are lenses that are in the, you know, $2,000, $3,000, $4,000 range. They don't even have autofocus. I mean, they're bare bones lenses.
Yeah.
And they are gorgeous.
Yeah.
These lenses are good. They are not what I would call real Leica lenses.
Right.
They've borrowed the brand.
Okay.
And
Okay.
it's a great relationship for them.
But we should verify that too,
Verify what?
and see what exactly. Because I interviewed the Leica guy at Photo Plus Expo,
Yes.
one of the Leica folks, and he didn't say exactly what they did, but I think he said the nature of the relationship between Panasonic and Leica was that Leica actually is present in the factory at Panasonic. But I don't know what like finding out what the difference is between the lenses without doing a side by side. This is the Leica shot.
Right.
This is the Leica branded Lumix shot.
Well,
you know,
Leica may make the lenses for all I know.
Yeah.
I don't know. But I guarantee you that when they call the 25 millimeter a Summilux, which is their name for an f1.4 lens, and it cost, you know, 1/5 of what a regular Summilux costs.
Right.
You get what you pay for. And I'm telling you, I've shot with both of them.
I mean, is it?
Oh yeah, no, it's a great deal to get the cheaper lens.
Right.
And it has autofocus. My God, what a concept.
Right.
Oh,
that's the other thing. Yeah.
right?
No
So it's got
autofocus.
motors in it and all that stuff, right?
Yeah.
So they're very good lenses. I think they're excellent for the money. But I'm a little worried about people coming into this and saying, oh, I can get a Leica lens. Now we're going to get the hate mail because I'm going to say it's sort of like
You're going to get the hate
it's sort of like getting one of those. What's the fancy watch?
Rolex.
It's like getting a Rolex on Times Square. No, it's not that.
Ouch.
It's
I
not
don't think it's like that. No.
Let me back up and say, I really think the lenses are a great value. They're very sharp. I loved, in particular, shooting with the 25 millimeter.
I have that 25, but granted, I don't own any Leica glass, but that lens has produced some of the sharpest shots that I've ever seen.
And
and that's saying from all my Nikon glass, all my Olympus glass, all that lens, which is a Leica. What did you call it? Leica name only, whatever.
Lino.
I don't know what more sharpness I'd want out of that besides splitting atoms. It's pretty damn sharp.
I felt that way before I had a chance to shoot with Leica lenses.
Yeah. You're saying I haven't lived? That's what you're saying?
Well, yeah. I mean, when you get those lenses, I was like, I had never shot with them before.
Yeah.
But you shoot with those things, and you go in and you look at these one to one in Lightroom or Photoshop. You say, "Oh my God, I had no idea lens could be that sharp."
Okay,
Yeah.
now I want to do a test.
You're in trouble.
You're saying, "Oh, you've been staying in Motel 6 your entire life. Now you're moving up to
you don't know any better,
Cosmopolitan
right?
Vegas. You're ruined." See, I haven't been ruined. Maybe that's it. Yeah, you're ruined.
Well, there's so many metaphors we could bring into this. All right, we'll move on. So there are two other lenses I played with, and this is important. One is the 14 to 24 kit lens.
Okay.
This is a little pancake lens with an electric zoom. You cannot manually zoom this thing. I don't like that. I mean, it's good for video, but I want to turn a ring and zoom and all that.
Yeah.
But it's a little tiny thing. Normally, I wouldn't recommend it, except it adds only about $100 to the cost of the body when you buy it as a kit lens.
Throw it in there.
Exactly. So
is it 3.5/5.6 aperture?
It is exactly. I had to look at my notes. 3.5 to 5.6, 14 to 20.
How that's in my head.
14 to 24, which is again for you full frame guys out there, it's a 28 to 48. It's an okay lens, and the fact that it's so small means that when you want to go out and be really stealthy, you take the little pancake lens, and nobody takes you seriously.
And it looks like an older retro camera anyway.
It does.
So yeah.
Oh, that's important.
Yeah.
You can get it with the chrome top, the silver top, or the black top.
Yeah, this is kind of cool.
You get the silver, which I sort of like. I shot with the all black. Well, I shot with both of them. I like them both.
Yeah.
So there is a difference country to country. And I think, for example, you can get the black top only from B&H in the U.S. If you get it from other places, they don't. They do weird stuff
why
like that.
Why do they do that? Just
so if you
let me pick which one I want.
If you want the silver or the black, shop around because you can find it depending on your country of origin.
Yes, yes.
One of the lenses I played with, the fisheye 8mm. It's an f3.5 fisheye. I'm not usually a fisheye guy. I don't own one, but it was a lot of fun. So.
And how much was it?
I forget. It spends like $900.
Okay. Yeah. That's
it's the advantage of playing with gear. Right?
Exactly.
You don't care how much it costs because you're giving it back.
I care. Right? I care. Okay. What else we got?
Let's talk about competitors.
Yeah.
So where would you go out? Who should buy this thing? You're supposed to ask me that. Doug, who should buy this thing?
Yeah, so I was going to answer the question.
Go ahead.
You were asking me. So I
who
would
do you think should buy that?
I would put this in the league with the Olympus, the OMD EM1.
EM1, the new one.
Yeah, the new one. Not this guy, which is still awesome, but this is in that class. And the Sony, probably the NEX. All right, folks, through the magic of editing and the internet and connectivity and all that sort of stuff, Doug K and I are now in two separate places through Google Hangouts, and this is because we had a minor technical difficulty with the previous version of the show, which you were watching just a couple seconds ago. Regardless, we're back now. We're going to wrap the show up. So, Doug, let's just close this thing off. I think we were talking about competitors. So who's the main competition for this camera?
Well, there are two ways to look at the competition. One is within the world of Micro Four Thirds or overall. So let's look at in the Micro Four Thirds world in particular. The most obvious competitor is the Olympus OMD EM5, which is a camera that's about a year old. That camera is roughly the same price as the Lumix GX7, but the Lumix GX7 is a little bit newer, so it's not really a fair comparison. They both have 16 megapixel sensors. The EM5's a little more robust in terms of dust and splash proof, but the EM5 has no Wi-Fi, no NFC. I would say if you compare the two, I would put this camera ahead of the Olympus, except in the world of video, because we know that the Olympus EM5 uses its in-body stabilization during video mode, and the GX7 does not. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes total sense. Yeah, it's and this was Panasonic's first foray into in-body image stabilization, so it makes sense that they're just sort of getting their land legs underneath them. So what about the EM1? That's the newer one from Panasonic, and it's the replacement, I think, for the EM5, right?
Yeah, the EM1 is a definite upgrade. Neither one of us have had our hands on it yet, but that's going to be in a future edition of All About the Gear. The EM1 is more than $570 more expensive than the GX7. So we're talking about whatever percentage. It's a big bump in price.
Right.
But the EM1 is the second generation of that family, and it's got a lot of the things fixed. It's better overall build quality. It has the anti-aliasing low-pass filter remove. We've talked about that kind of thing in the past. Yeah. So they have a lot of faith in the resolution. It has faster autofocus than either of these cameras. But again, I would say it's not quite in the same ballpark. I would say it's a superior camera in probably every way, but at a superior price. So the question is, if you think you want to dive into Micro Four Thirds and you want the very best there is, you go for the Olympus OMD EM1. If you want a really good camera that's fun to shoot with, that does almost everything you need, then I think the Panasonic is the way to go too.
Love it. Great summary of that. And then the last question on that, in terms of competition, I know that you own a couple of Sony cameras, and your collection seems to be growing. What about the NEX6? Does that fit in terms of camera bodies that are in competition with the GX7?
Yeah, I think the NEX6, of course, has a larger sensor. It's an APS-C size, sort of a mid-size sensor, and if you're still at the point where you haven't decided whether you want Micro Four Thirds or APS-C, then that's a whole other show that we have to do at some point.
Right.
But in terms of quality of camera, the NEX6 is a real competitor for all this stuff. It's quite a bit cheaper now because it's been out for a while. It's been discounted quite a bit. It's at least $200 less expensive than the GX7. Has roughly the same sensor resolution, but that's a big decision. The big decision is which size system you go with, because as we've always said, the biggest advantage of Micro Four Thirds is you have a wider variety of lens selection and you have multiple vendors that you can interchange stuff with. So you need to first make that decision. If you're going APS-C, you don't even need to listen to this review because you're not going to go with a Micro Four Thirds camera.
Right. Yeah, it's yeah, you're right. There's a lot of choice out there, and I think part of the big thing is just to jump in and start shooting, and don't suffer from analysis paralysis and miss shots because you're hamstrung on which of these things to go with. It's kind of hard to make a wrong choice. So then, speaking of choice, who's this? What do you think? Who's this for?
Well, that's always the question we like to wrap up with. Who's this for? But in this case, you're the guy who's got both an Olympus OMD EM5 and a GX7, and I only had those cameras for a couple of weeks. You've been living with both of them for a while, so I'm going to flip it back to you and say, which one do you like, and who do you think they're for?
Like I started my journey in the Micro Four Thirds world with the Olympus OMD EM5, and I still love the camera. I love the way it feels, the heft of it, the size of it or lack thereof. It's just an amazing camera, and I think I'll keep it in perpetuity, but I'll tell you, as technology marches forward, the GX7 filled a lot of holes that were left by that particular camera, and I'm pointing up there because it's sitting on the shelf over there. But the main thing that this camera, the GX7, has over the EM5 for me right now is the Wi-Fi, the built-in Wi-Fi on this thing. I love the built-in Wi-Fi. I use it all the time. Panasonic has an app that you download on Android or iOS, on your tablet or your smartphone, whatever, and you go into Wi-Fi mode simply by pressing one button. You hit that button right there. This thing starts broadcasting a Wi-Fi network signal. You join or you connect to the network with the app, and suddenly you can either control the camera or shoot tethered, either for example, shoot and then have the images show up on the tablet over there. It just works really seamlessly. There's some little glitches in there, like sometimes it doesn't see and you have to restart or whatever, but by and large it's just been an invaluable feature for me. And I'll tell you, just to wrap it up quickly, the main reason why I think it's invaluable is because, Doug, you and I lament the fact that these cameras have these non-articulated LCDs on them, i.e. they don't flip forward like this so that you can, do your selfie type shots with them. But I found that this screen, no matter how big it is on these cameras, it's almost too small to do, depending on the focal length that you're using on the camera, this LCD, even if it were facing forward, is too small to do any kind of meaningful or give you any kind of meaningful information other than kind of general cropping of your shot. But when you use Wi-Fi and you're tethered, you can have your phone sitting in your lap while the camera's shooting. You can start and stop, you can see the shot, you can change things right from your lap. So I think the fact that these things now have Wi-Fi kind of removes the necessity or the argument for having that articulated LCD in many instances. So, the final word is this camera for me right now, because it has Wi-Fi and a bunch of other things, that I won't go into. It just feels like a better fit for the way my brain works. But I still have a huge warm spot in my heart for the OMD EM5.
Yeah, and I want to echo what you're saying. The Wi-Fi in the GX7 is excellent. It runs circles around what Sony does in any of their cameras. And I should also point out that GX7 looks awesome on an iPad mini in this case. Yeah. Makes a great combination.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
And let me just ask you one final question.
Sure.
How much lust do you have for the OMD EM1?
I knew you were going to ask me that. I have a lot of lust for that camera. And I'll tell you the main reason that I have lust for it is, the cool thing is all the lenses that I have for these other cameras will work on that if I ever decide to use it. But the main thing that's missing from this for me, because I do a lot of video, lately I'm doing more and more video, is this guy does not have an audio import, and neither does the EM5. You can get an audio import on the EM5 with a hot shoe adapter that gives you one, but it's it's extra bits to carry, and you got to plug this in. I just want an audio import on this thing. The EM1 has an audio import, so that little thing may seem little to a lot of people, but for me, it's kind of big. So that's the one sort of thing that's like, oh, if I just had that on my GX7, life would be so much sweeter.
Okay. All right. Well, I guess that's it. We covered them pretty well, huh?
Yeah, I think we got it. All right, well, cool. So, folks, this is the end of this episode of All About the Gear. Doug, what about the review? I know, so we kind of go through a lot of the topics and features of this camera from a high level in these video reviews, and then you take the camera and you dive into the DNA level, and then you look at the different bits and cells and all that stuff in your written review. Where is that at, and where can folks find that?
Well, you can always go to dougk.com and just navigate to the All About the Gear tab on that site, or you can go directly to blogorithms.com. But if you can't spell that, you can't remember that, just look at the links that we put in the notes for the video, and you'll find it from there.
Perfect. All right, and then lastly, what's up next? What are you going to be talking about in the next episode?
Oh, yeah, we've got some great ones coming up. We're going to be looking at the little lens camera, the Sony QX10, which I happen to have sitting right here. There it is.
Yeah.
I just went out of focus. What happened to me? The little lens camera, I'm going to do that. We're going to be looking at hopefully the EM1, the Olympus OMD EM1, and the Sony A7, which we've been talking about for a long time.
The Sony A7, yeah, I know you've been shooting with that for a while, and from what you've told me so far, you're happy with it. Right?
I am, and still learning. But by the time we're ready for the review, I should be ready.
Okay, excellent. All right, Doug. Well, thanks a lot, and I'll see you in the next episode of All About the Gear.
All right, thanks a lot, Frederick. Bye bye.
Yep. See you later.